So starting next week, temperatures are supposed to be dropping to the 20s or so. That means that I won't be getting any growth in the grass. If anything, the grass is actually going to die. Then it'll come back when it's a little warmer. So I've been taking a look at everything, and I figured I need to stockpile on some feed. I'm going to bring in some feed, and so I was running the numbers to see if it was going to be. I'm just going to run the numbers to see what the numbers look like. I was going to order the feed today, but it's New Year's and they're closed. So I got to order the feed tomorrow. So I'm going to order some feed. So I was running the numbers to get an idea of is feed, can I make money on the feed? And I know that when I do this, I talk about it, but I talk about what I'm doing. But I figured that today, this whole thing about writing it down and showing it to y'all, I think that this is good. That this is what I do. I write it down on a piece of paper. I'm gonna write down what I do on a piece of paper and then show it to y'all so that maybe it makes more sense. So this is how I calculate what am I gonna pay for feed, how much am I gonna make, how much do I anticipate that I'm gonna make, etc., etc. Is the feed free, right? Am I making money on the feed? This is how I calculate all that. So right now, the average cost for the feed is about $325 a ton delivered. That's about how much I pay for feed right now. It's about $325 a ton delivered. The average weight of my animal right now is about 500 pounds. And I'm going to look to take them into 590. So that means I have an average, that means this is going to be over the next month. So if I have a 500-pound animal, I believe that if I feed them on a grain ration, on a good grain ration, they're going to put on about 3 pounds a day. And I also got a little bit of grass, so they're going to be chewing on a little bit of grass. But this is going to be a grain that's a free choice grain, and it's specially formulated for the cattle, etc., etc. If I think that they need a little bit more energy, I can mix in a little bit more distiller grains or corn or whatever I need to do. But if they're getting fed free choice grain, they'll probably put on it, and I do my part and I keep a good track of the animal. They'll put on about 3 pounds a day. As of right now, I would say that the average weight of my herd is about 500 pounds, and they're eating a lot of food. So they'll put on about 3 pounds a day. So I believe that they'll go from about 500 to about 590. So that means that the average weight of the animal is going to be 545. And I said that I use 3.25% of their body weight as a reasonable estimate for how much they're going to eat. So 3.25% of their body weight at the average weight 545 is going to be $17.72 pounds of feed per day. So if I take 3.25% of the average weight, 545, I anticipate that they're going to eat about 17.75 pounds or so of feed a day. And if they eat 17.72 pounds of feed a day and the feed costs me 16 cents a day, that means that feed costs me $2.84 a day. So when I take a look at it for 1 month, that's going to cost me $86.44 for the month. I believe that at 500 pounds, my animals are going to bring in at about $11.50, and at about 590, they'll bring in about $1,300. I'll actually make about $150 for that gain in weight. For that extra 90 pounds, I'll actually make about $150 of net profit. So if I take that $150 of net profit and I deduct the costs, that puts me at $63.56 of net profit. And if I multiply that by 33 animals, I'm making about $2,100 if I do this. If I completely feed them on just feed, I give them just feed and that's all they eat. And that's all they eat, and I feed them on feed all the time. They're gonna put on about 2,100 pounds, or excuse me, $2,100 worth of gain. And here is the part that I've been talking about, why it's so much cheaper for me to grow my own grass. And I was taking a look at the costs, and feed is like 5 times more expensive. Okay, if I get feed from a grain mill, it's going to be like 5 times more expensive. If I was just going to buy raw corn, I mean, here's another way to put it. corn right now, even though, and I don't remember where I got that 3 times number from, but growing my own grass is substantially cheaper. Right now, the grain market is low, and it still costs me like 5 times more. So it costs me over 5 times more to buy feed than it does for me to just grow my grass. And here are the numbers. So if I take the 1 month cost of the grain, so if I take 33 animals and I multiply that number by 17.72 pounds of feed a day, and then I get the financial cost of that amount of food, that's $2,852.52. But if I take 1 month of fertilizer, that's $550 for 1 tonnage. If I say I'm going to use 1 tonnage of fertilizer during the month, then that's going to cost me about $550. So if instead of feeding grain, I just grew my own grass, and I effectively got $2,302 back, I would actually net a profit. I would actually be making $4,402. So that's the big thing about grain. That's the big thing about food. And I was saying that when I actually take a look at it for what it is, and I just take a look at the money, when I run about 40 animals, even right now at 35 animals, I actually make closer to about $5,000 a month when I'm growing grass. But this is why. When I grow grass, I mean it's just so much cheaper. Because when it comes to grain, and I talk about this all the time, but when it comes to grain and when it comes to harvesting feed for the animals, I mean, you're talking about a lot of machinery. You got to have a big old tractor to to harvest the corn and then the wheat and whatever else, soybeans, and you got to harvest all this stuff, and you got to combine it, and then you got to put it up into a big old 18-wheeler, and then when you take it to the 18-wheeler, you got to take it to a grain bin. And then when you get it to the grain bin, you got to unload it from the grain bin and take it to your commodity broker. And then your commodity broker puts it through a mill. And then they make these pellets out of it. And by the time they're done, the thing costs, even when feed prices are low, the cost of feed is drastically higher than the cost of growing grass. If I was going to grow a 1 month supply of grass for 33 animals that are 500 pounds, 545 pounds, it would cost me like $550. And the thing is that at a certain point, the fertilizer is not really going to do that much better, right? I mean, you got to think about the idea of diminishing returns. The idea of fertilizer is that when you apply the right fertilizer, right, it's very important to diagnose the field correctly, because if you diagnose your field incorrectly and you apply the wrong fertilizer, what's going to happen is that your problem is just going to get worse. Because I talked about this, but if you have a sulfur deficiency in your field and you think it's a nitrogen deficiency and you put urea on your field, that sulfur deficiency is still there and is not getting any better. If anything, it's getting worse. So if you take a look at your field and you're like, I put fertilizer on my field, but I don't think it's really doing anything, or maybe it's even getting worse, then you put the wrong fertilizer on your field, okay? You either did not apply the fertilizer correctly, or you just flat out put the wrong fertilizer on your field. It just is what it is, all right? And so, fertilizer, if you put the right fertilizer on your field, you will notice the difference. That fertilizer, it will make your crops grow, okay? It will make your crops grow very well. So, and the idea of diminishing returns is that when you first when you apply the right fertilizer, let's say we have an XY graph, right? And at first, when you have no fertilizer, your grass is going to be growing about right here, and then it's going to be like this, and then it's actually going to start going down. It's like a downwards curve shape. So at first there's going to be a drastic benefit, and then it's going to hit kind of a plateau. It's going to hit a point where it's kind of like the fertilizer, even if you put more on the field, it's not really going to do anything. And then it's actually going to start negatively affecting your biomass accumulation. At a certain point, fertilizer will actually create a negative, or will actually start producing a negative biomass return. And that's just because the fertilizer has actually hit a toxic level in the field. So, the fertilizer is actually causing damage to the field. And so, you really want to, the big idea is you kind of want to get it right here. You kind of want to get it right here. And you kind of want to hover and then you kind of want to hover in this area for, you kind of want to hover in this area. If you start seeing that the biomass accumulation is slowing down, you kind of want to put a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit, and but you got to be real careful with fertilizing. You got to be real careful with it. Just dumping a whole bunch of fertilizer on the field is not going to be the solution to your problem. You gotta really be careful about it. You gotta really be thorough about it. Not careful, you gotta be thorough about it. All right. Just have a good idea. Think of a good idea. Oh well, if I'm a good idea for growing fertilizer, something that I would do is like, oh well, if I'm growing a grass crop, if I'm growing winter wheat, I'm growing Forage Max winter wheat, I anticipate that the average utilization, if I were going to think of the broader idea, what is this plant metabolizing in terms of just a broader reality, if I was just going to take a look at it in terms of a broader idea, I don't have like some like a supercomputer, right? I'm not like a supercomputer. I'm not like analyzing the plant material and collecting information on how much nitrate is inside of the leaf material. I'm not doing stuff like that, right? But if I were to just have a broad idea and I were to just think about it in terms of a big idea, I would anticipate that the field, that the grass is utilizing a fertilizer ratio of about a 5:1:3 NPK. It's utilizing a 5:1:3 NPK ratio. And if I put 50 pounds of nitrogen on there, it's going to use about 10 pounds of, the grass is also going to use about 10 pounds of phosphorus and about 30 pounds of potassium. I believe that at about, if I double that fertilizer rate to 100 pounds, then I'll actually be beyond this point. I'll actually end up somewhere in here at about 100 pounds. And when I get to probably about, I don't know, a couple hundred, 250 or so pounds of nitrogen, it'll actually start negatively affecting the field. Something like that, right? I don't know exactly, but I don't know exactly where these points happen, but I do know that from what I have personally experienced, if you put on about over the course of about 8 or 9 months, if you put from what from the information that I have personally collected, and also from the books that I have read, and from the studies that I have read, about 150 pounds of nitrogen over 8 or 9 months. I don't know what that averages out to, but 150 pounds of nitrogen over about 8 or 9 months, it's not going to damage your field in any way. If anything, it's just going to be a good thing for your field. It's actually going to improve the quality of your field. At about 100, that's from what I have seen. It's about 150 pounds of nitrogen. You're not really at danger, at risk of doing anything that's going to like severely damage your field. Like if you go from fall to the beginning of summer, let's just say 9 months, over a 9-month period. If you put 150 pounds of nitrogen on a field, it's not gonna damage your field. Okay, if anything, it's gonna make your field do better. So that's just from the info, about 150, 200 pounds, something like that. It's not gonna damage your field at all. So, but every field is different. Some fields need calcium, some fields need sulfur, some fields don't need whatever, right? Don't well, I mean whatever. I mean whatever. Some fields, whatever. It's different. So you gotta take a look at your situation, and but that's just but I mean it's very rare to have something like a copper deficiency. I've actually never seen a something like a copper deficiency before, right? I haven't personally, but I don't know. I mean, who knows? I mean, my field might have a copper deficiency, right? But for like the super micro minerals, I actually found a lab here locally that does soil testing. So I want to start doing that too. I think that would be good in terms of just collecting information, just having information about my field. Having a soil test will be good. And but that's That's the big idea, right? And I don't know, when I was doing my other business plan, and I was talking about $1,000 an acre. I don't know, a $1,000 a net profit an acre. I don't know exactly what the heck I was doing and why my numbers were so low. I don't exactly, but these are my numbers right now. If I were to talk about my numbers today, like right now, if I'm going to collect information from my field right now objectively and just take a look at it, this is what my numbers look like. If I have my animals on grass and I feed them a little bit of corn, if I have them on grass and I feed them a little bit of corn, maybe a little bit of distiller grains, I make about $4,000 a month. Realistically, it's actually probably closer to about 5,000. Well, I mean, but 5,000 is when I have a lot of grass. Right now, I don't have a lot of grass. I do have some grass. The animals are eating a portion of their diet in grass. I would say they're eating about a half of their diet in grass. And so maybe about a third of their diet in grass, something like that. And so right now, maybe I'm making about closer to whatever, about $3,500 a month. But realistically, when I take a look at my numbers, even when I'm not doing very good, I make like $5,000. Well, I mean, on the average, somewhere I make like in the spring, my profits explode because I mean the grass is just growing like crazy every single day. I mean the grass just grows, but every single day the grass is growing. Granted that I get some moisture. If I get some rain for like 3 months, my profits skyrocket. For like 3 months in the fall, my profits do good. For like 3 months in the summer, my profits look like this. Right? For about 2 months in the summer, my profits look like this, and for about 2 months in the winter, my profits look something between this and this. All right, so it's like my profits kind of shrink in the summer and in the winter, but in the spring, my profits go explosively higher, and then in the fall, my profits do good too. So on the average, but when I take a look at it for what it is, just on the long average, I make somewhere between $5, $6, and $7,000 a month net profit. That's about how much I make. And also, I wanted to talk about this whole idea about this grain situation. Is that the grain? If I can make money on it, like if I run my numbers and I figure something out like this, like even if I feed my animals 100% of their diet in grain, if I took grain right now and just started feeding it to my animals, and I started and I still can make money like this. That means even if I fudge the numbers severely, and here's the thing: the animals are not going to eat like 5% of their body weight. Okay, it's if I have 17.72 pounds of feed a day per animal, that means they're going to be eating about a quarter ton or so. I don't know. Multiply that by 33, right? And so they're going to be eating something about a quarter ton of feed a day. And if I'm going through a feed sack every 4 days, then I'll know that I'm hitting my numbers. And if I'm going through a feed sack faster than every 4 days, and I know that my animals are probably heavier than 545 pounds, etc., etc. I still got some grass out there. They shouldn't be eating 5% of their body weight. I mean, they're not going to be eating 5% of their body weight. So the average weight is probably higher, and I need to recalculate my numbers. I need to recalibrate my numbers, right? So this just gives me an idea of, okay, well, if I feed a quarter ton of feed, if I feed 1/4 ton of feed a day, so if I feed a 2,000 pack of feed, a 2,000 pound sack of feed every 4 days, then I am still making a net profit of about $2,100 a month. So in this scenario, feed is free, right? Feed is not only free. If I actually buy the feed, I'll actually make money. So I might as well just feed it to them as much as I can. I mean, I'll feed them as much grass as I can, but I might as well feed them as much feed as I can too, right? I might as well. I'm going to make money on it. And it's a tax deductible asset. You see what I'm saying? So, so I'm going to order feed. I'm going to order feed tomorrow. I was actually going to order it this morning, and I called them and they're closed for New Year's. So I'm going to order feed because feed is free. Not only is it free, but it's actually a positive return asset. As of right now, if I were to feed my animals entirely on feed, which I wouldn't do, they still have access to the grass. They can go and chew on some grass. They can get 10% of their diet in grass or whatever. They can go and eat as much grass as they want, or as much grass as there is. There's not a whole lot of it, but there's still a little bit back there. And even if I do that and I feed them like that, I will still make $2,100 a month. But in reality, I don't want to be. And here's the thing. And that right now is that You know, this is also what I mean by I don't really want to be in the cattle feeding business, because right now, if I were to make $5,000 a month, which is not okay, $5,000 a month. Okay, but here's the thing: if I was gonna make $5,000 a month, that means I would need to run like 80 animals. I would need to have 80 animals to make $5,000 a month, and and this is also when feed costs are very low. If the feed costs, if feed costs, gauge it by this number. So this is how much, and this is also the weight of my animals. And so if the animal was heavier, and etc. I mean, there are, the margins start to shrink very quickly. All right, right now I probably make in this right now there's a margin of $63.56 per animal right now, but I mean, if you're talking about an animal that's 800 pounds, and then you take the 3.25% of their weight, I mean, the profit margins start to shrink very quickly. All right, I don't even know if this whole shebang would make money if I was gonna feed an average weight of an 800-pound animal. I don't even know. 800 pounds times point 0.3, that's gonna be 0.325. That's gonna be like almost like 28 pounds of feed a day. So I don't even know if this, but I mean, you can run the numbers, but this is how I come up with my numbers. I took a look at my numbers right now. I took a look at my field right now. I took a look at my animals. And this is what I logically deduced. This is what I came up with. And the whole thing about having a plan like this, having an idea like this, is that now I understand that if I am feeding 500 pounds of feed a day, I am still making it, and my animals are conditioning properly. My animals are not showing signs of still being hungry, right? I mean, that there's feed left in the bunk every day. If your animals eat 3.25% of their body weight a day, there should be some food left. Like if you just keep dumping food out for them, there should be some food left. Animals, cattle will eat about 3.25% of their body weight a day, something like that. They're not going to eat 5, 6, 7% of their body weight. Okay, they're not going to do that. They'll normally eat about 3.25% of their body weight a day. So if you just keep dumping them food, if you just keep giving them food, there should be some food left over in the morning. That's how you know. That's how you know your animals is effectively just stuffing their face all day, that they left food left over. And if there's food left over, then they're probably eating their maximum capacity. And if they're eating their maximum capacity, and the grain is somewhere between like 70 is about 75% energy, 75% energy, they'll put on about 3 pounds a day. All right, if that grain, it's a 12% protein, 12, 13, 14% protein, and they're got a 75% energy. And the thing about energy is that if you think that you can push the energy higher, try adding, the way that I do it, I would add about maybe 1/4% of their body weight in corn. Add about 1/4% of their body weight a day in corn. And if they don't have acidosis, if they're not bloating, if they're not, having a massive diarrhea problems or anything like that, if their manure still looks okay, then they're doing okay. So increasing the energy is going to make them put on more weight more quickly. And you can how I do it is I add a little bit of corn, or if they need protein too, I add a little bit of distilled grains. So right, and but this whole situation, I don't know if it would even work. Like if the price of corn, if the price of grain went up by 30%, and the price or the average weight of the animal went up by 30%, I mean, this would be a fail, right? I mean, this would the numbers would not pencil out, and you'd probably start losing money. I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, let's take a look at it, right? I mean, the average cost right now is $86.44. So let's just say $90, and I were to take that up, increase the cost of the grain by 33%. So that would be $123. Yeah, then boom, immediately the profit margin shrinks to $23 an animal. All right, and $23 for the month on the animal. And if you think about the price of the cattle going up too, or not the price of the cattle, the weight of the cattle going up too. So not only are they going to eat 17.72 pounds a day, they're going to eat 30% more. Now we're talking about almost 25 pounds of feed a day. Yeah, no, at $2.84 a day, I mean, you increase that by 30%. That's almost $1. That's almost $3, like $3.75 or $3.50 or something. That's over $100 a yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, well, I mean that's the $120 a day, right? And so, um, profit margins would shrink. But I mean, a lot of feed yards, if they're making if they make $50 on an animal, a lot of these feed yards, if they make a $50 net positive return on an animal, like if a lot of these feed yards, that's the thing about these commercial feed yards is that they make like if they make 5, 10, $15 a month per animal, then they're completely happy because they have hundreds, like hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands, and maybe even 100,000 animals. So if they make 5, 10, $15 an animal a month, then they're very happy about it. But me, that's not worth the time. I'm not gonna sit here and split my chops open for $2,100 a month, right? Realistically, my profits are actually closer to $5, 6, $7,000 a month, and I'm on a 10.5 acre field. So I'm not going to split my chops open for $2,100 a month. But a lot of these feed yards, I mean, they make $5 a month per animal. They make $10 a month per animal. They make $15 a month per animal. Then they're very happy about it. But not me. I mean, I'm not going to do that business. Why would I do that business? I'm not going to do that business. As a one farmer on a field, I'm not going to do that business. That's not a good investment, right? So, I've taken a look at the cost of the grain. I've taken a look at it, and I've deduced that if I buy this feed and I feed it to the animals and I give them a 500 pound, if I give them 1/4 of the feed a day, if I give them 1/4 of a 2,000 pound sack of feed a day, and they're leaving some feed over every single day, I'm feeding 500 pounds a day. And am I feeding 500 pounds a day? Something like that. Or if I'm feeding whatever, I don't know. 17.72 times 33 pounds of feed a day. And if I feed them that much and they still got feed left over, then I am making a substantial positive return on the feed. All right, I'm actually making an extra $2,000 on that feed. But I don't really want to be in a situation where I'm in this business all the time, because if you actually take a look at the cost of the grain, and if I were to just grow my own grass, my profits would skyrocket to almost double. I would almost double the amount of money that I make. So, I don't really want to be in this business all the time. I don't want to be in the cattle feeding business, but as of right now, next week, there's going to be some like polar vortex and it's going to get very cold. So I got to think about how am I going to feed the animals when it gets real cold outside? And here's a realistic way for me to do it. The grass is probably not going to grow very much, if any at all. I don't really want to feed junk hay or anything like that, and so I'm going to go to my broker. I'm going to go to my commodity broker. And the thing about my commodity broker is that I actually have a line of credit at my commodity broker, and so I don't need to pay anything. I just order it on credit. And then when I'm done feeding it and I make money on my animals, I can pay them when it's all said and done. So, and it's I'll just pay a couple of percentages in interest. So it's not that big of a deal. So I can actually order the feed on credit. If I take a look at it and I say, oh, I can actually make money on this feed, I can just order the feed. I'll be purchasing it on credit, and then I can just feed it to the animals. And when I'm done feeding it to the animals, and I make my money on the feed, I can actually pay them back afterwards. So there's a substantial margin to be made on the feed. So I'm going to go ahead and order it. I was going to order it this morning. I actually called them this morning, but they're closed for New Year's. So I'll call them tomorrow and I'll order the feed. Then I'll be good to go. I also got a new property that I'm going to go look at. I got a new piece of property. It's a big one. It's over 100 acres. And it's about a half an hour away, so that's real good. I'm gonna go take a look at it. I'm gonna go take a look at it as soon as I get a chance. I got a new property that I need to go look at, And it is New Year's, and you know, turning everything around on a day is nonsensical. It's probably not going to happen. I've always said that the whole thing, I'm not right. I'm not here to be a malicious individual. In all honesty, if I could just be completely sincere, if I was just going to be completely sincere about the whole thing, I don't get a kick out of watching people fail. I don't think it's funny. I do not think it's funny. A lot of people end up failing. Uh, a majority of people, and God knows it. And if I were to just gonna be completely honest, God knows it. All right, and so it just is what it is. If we were to have an honest conversation with every individual on the planet, a lot of people would just be a massive sack of problems. All right. I mean, probably even me. I don't know. That's. Well, I'm not gonna say I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'm a massive sack of problems too in my own way, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, I'm not gonna even say but. I'm just gonna say at the end of the day, I make a drastic amount of money. It just I don't predate on poor people. All right, I don't sit around and waste my time on fairy tale adventures. All right, I think about making money. I make a drastic amount of money. Uh, when I take a look at what I'm doing, I don't know how I ended up lowballing myself so hard that I ended up only making a $1,000 a month in net profit an acre, but right or $1,000 a year. But right now, when I take a look at my numbers for what they are as of today, I make about $4,000 a month, and I'm not even doing that fantastically well. And that $4,000 is a net profit, and I'm not even doing that fantastically well. In all honesty, if I were running my farm at full on capacity, my net profits are actually closer to about five, six, $7,000 a month. So, I probably got to increase the size of my herd back up to 40. So I'm at 33 right now, and if I did that, that would increase the numbers by about 15%. And then if you think about growing grass, and then all right, maybe well, I mean, if I brought in more animals, the average weight would drop, and so et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they wouldn't the entirety of the herd would not be eating as much food, et cetera, et cetera. But when I take a look at it for what it is, I actually and a lot of times when I run these numbers, I end up lowballing myself so hard that when I actually just go out and do it, I actually end up doing way better than I actually anticipated. So, you know, but oh yeah, I was actually going to talk about the whole thing about investing, and I was like I was considering possibly okay, because when I sit around like this and I just collect money, I'm going to be collecting about five, six, $7,000 a month. Okay, I would anticipate that over the next 3 or 4 months, I actually have over 20 grand. Spring is coming up, and when the spring comes, even early spring, and when the spring gets here, I mean, my profits are going to go higher. 1 month of spring will net. I mean, I'll probably end up making somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 in the next 3 months, and I don't want to sit around with 15, 20 grand cash. That's legitimately money that I have left over after I paid for everything. So I was considering the possibility of buying a stock and leaving my money in the stock. And I'm looking into buying Coca Cola. So I'm looking into buying Coca Cola. I think that the price right now is decent, and I don't just want to sit around with 15, 20 grand. All right. And so I figured, what can I do? 15, 20 grand. I don't want to sit around with that. So what can I do with the money? And I'm looking into buying Coca Cola. But I was actually running this whole shebang. I was running the whole the numbers. Coca Cola. The thing about why would I buy Coca Cola? Well, I drink 2 Diet Cokes a day. All right. I drink Diet Coke. I drink a lot of Diet Coke. I believe in the product. The product is good, right? I mean, the product is good. I drink Diet Coke. And so I'm looking into buying Coca Cola. I might just put my money in Coca Cola. Coca Cola. It also gives a 3% dividend. From my understanding, it's a 3% dividend. So that's fantastic. That's a guaranteed 3% of the equity that you have as a dividend. And so I'm like 3% dividend. That's fantastic. And so it beats putting money in a bank account. That's for sure. It's better to put. But I mean, the price of stock is that the stock can go up and it can go down. But I believe that Coca Cola is going to be around for a long time. Okay, I believe that Coca Cola is going to be around for a long time. And Warren Buffett really likes Coca Cola stock too. So that's the thing. And so I was taking a look at it, and I was like, you know what? I drink Coca Cola. I drink Diet Coke. I drink a lot of Diet Coke. Warren Buffett likes the stock too. I mean, Warren Buffett. And I take a look at it, and I'm like, I think that the stock is good. Stock's at a good price right now too. It's not too high. It's not too low. Stock's at a decent price. If it falls, maybe, I don't think it's gonna fall more than 10% over the next whatever a year or so. I don't think it's gonna fall over. It's not, Coca Cola's not going to zero. All right. And Coca Cola's not going. It's not dropping 50%. All right. So, and even if it drops 50%, I would legitimately leverage for it. So, I mean, right. I mean, and so Coca Cola is not going to zero. I drink. I drink Diet Coke, and so I was looking into putting my money into Coca Cola, and the thing about it is that I was actually taking a look at it, and if I make a 10% positive return on the stock a year, and I was going to give this information to y'all because with just the utmost sincerity, this is I'm giving you the best information that I can. I'm not maliciously leading you the wrong way. It just gives you something to think about. Coca-Cola, let's say it makes a 10% return a year. And let's say that you really went out and you really were gonna do something for yourself, and you were dead set on doing it. And and I've always said that if you find a way to make an extra if an adult individual found a way to make an extra $2,000 a month, and if you consider that the average family is, well, I mean, granted that like half of people get divorced, or but let's just say that we got a family that's got a mom and a dad. The average American family is a mom and a dad, and two kids, right? And usually one of the kids are working too, but forget the kid, okay, for a second. The mom and the dad are both working, and the average mom, dad, and the kid are working, and they make about $80,000 to $100,000 a year combined. But if the mom and the dad just went out and found a way to make an extra $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year to get. That would be an extra $48,000 a year for the family. That would be an extra 48 grand. And if you took that 48 grand, and instead of doing things like buying yourself a bigger house and buying yourself a better car, which there is really no reason to do, all right, largely there is no reason to do that. You can worry about buying the house later, okay? You can worry about buying the bigger house later. You can worry about buying yourself a better car later, all right? Right now, the thing is that you got to get yourself into a situation where you're making such an excess amount of money that you can do whatever the heck you want, right? I talk about my situation all the time. I make about an excess of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month, and it is effectively enough money to do whatever the heck I want. I make about $150,000 a year net take-home pay, somewhere about 150 grand, 160 grand or something. That's about how much money I bring home every year, about 150 grand, and it's effectively enough money for me to do whatever the heck I want, even at $150,000 a year, all right? And I'm being completely serious. I'm being straightforward with you. 150 grand a year is my net take-home pay, and I effectively make enough money to do whatever the heck I want, all right? And so the big idea is that if you took that $4,000 a month that the two adults were making, that $4,000 a month, and you went and you bought a stock that you looked at it and you said that I believe that this stock is going to go up. It produces a dividend, right? Like Coca Cola, 3% dividend. You get a 3% dividend on it. I believe it's 3%. And the thing is and Coca Cola has a long track history for like the last 60, 70 years of going up, probably about I don't even know, about 10%, maybe even more a year or so. So let's just say 10% return, right? I mean, so let's just say 7% a year, and then you get a 3% dividend. That's 10%. And if you think about that, so if you put $48,000, let's just say at the end of the year you put $48,000 a year into that Coca-Cola stock, and you make a 10% return on it a year. That's an extra $5,000 a year, right? And I mean, and if you take that $5,000 and then you reinvest it into the stock, if you just got it together and you really just concluded that you really want to do this, if you just did that for 5 years, right? If you just struggled through it and you found your peace with God and you stuck to it no matter what, within 5 years you would have put $250,000. What is it? $4,000, 48,000. You would have put about, after taxes, maybe you would have put about $200,000 of your own money into the stock. The stock would have gone up 10%. Not even gone up, but maybe gone up 7% and giving you a 3% return. So after, let's just say whatever, right? And then if you think about that, now you're making an extra like $2,000 a month, maybe even more. I mean, if you reinvest the dividends and you actually think about compounding the interest, I mean, if you just stuck to it for 5 years, you would effectively just be in a situation where the stock is just making you more money, right? It's just making you more money. You're making an extra $2,500 a month. And if you really stuck to it for the long haul and you did it for 10 years, I mean, now you're in a situation where you could legitimately just sit there and just, in 10 years, I mean, you really stuck to it, and, you didn't give up on yourself. You didn't go and be an idiot or anything, and you just held on to the stock. And I mean, you really got it together, and you decided that you were going to do this thing for yourself, and you wanted to see yourself do well for yourself financially, and you found your peace with God about, you found your peace with God about it. You weren't going to take the money and go do a bunch of drugs or whatever it is. I mean, go be an idiot. You're not going to be an idiot, and you're going to take the money and you're going to invest it into something that produces a positive return. And that's what you did. Probably after about even probably after 5 years, you would start feeling the effects of, and maybe even after right. I mean, it wouldn't take very long for you to start feeling like, oh man, like this thing's actually making me money. Like I'm actually, I actually have zero money problems, right? I mean, you got a couple of $100,000 worth of equity in a stock. It's producing you a 10% return. If you want to go and you want to buy a house, you can use your stocks as a form of negotiation, right? Coca Cola stock is a good stock, so collateralize it or something, and you can hold it as and then whatever it may be, right? And it's producing a positive return. And after 5-10 years, I mean, you after 5 years, 10 years, if you really stuck to the long haul, 10-15 years, I mean, but after a while, you would start feeling the effects of the wealth as well, right? And then I'm not saying I'm a saint, because I'm not a saint. I make a substantial, I make a substantial amount of, I actually make enough money to where money has, I legitimately have zero money problems. Like I have a excess of money to such a degree that I can't even really use it. And I bring home about 150 grand a year. So and I'm looking into taking my money and investing it in a way that will actually increase my cash flow. It will actually increase the amount of money that I make. So but yeah, I mean, maybe 2025 is the year that you get after it, and maybe 2025 is the year that you make it. I want to see everybody make it, okay? I want to see everybody make it. I don't think it's funny when people fail. Most people fail. And let's just be honest with ourselves, right? A lot of people, if you had an honest to God conversation with them, you're not going to really get much good. All right? Barely have any money. Their family is struggling because they don't have any money. Think highly of themselves. They're poor and proud. Right? Everything is unfair. The reason that they didn't make it was because they're just, everything's a pity party. When in reality, if you just took your income up by $2,000 a month and bought like Coca Cola stock for 5 years, you took that money and you just bought Coca Cola stock for like 5 years, you would effectively, after 5 years, you would have enough money to do whatever the heck you want. I mean, realistically, granted that you didn't go and be an idiot. All right, after 10 years especially, after 10 years, I mean, we're talking about you'd probably be a millionaire. I don't exactly know, but that's in the average American family situation. The mother and the father both work, and if each parent went and made an extra $2,000 a month, that would be $4,000 a month for the family. You took that $4,000 and you bought a stock that you reasonably anticipated was going to go up by 10% a year or so. Something like Coca Cola produces a 3% dividend. and then you reinvested your money, and you just, no matter what, you stuck to it. You stuck to your plan, and after 5 or 10 years, you would just be good to go, right? I mean, after about 10 years, especially after 10 years, I mean, it would be like, you want to go and buy yourself a BMW, go for it. You want to go and buy yourself a Mercedes, go for it, right? You want to go and whatever, right? Live in a super nice house, then go for it, right? I mean, you want to live in a $1 million house, then go for it, right? I mean, et cetera, right? Maybe a 2025 is the year that you make it. That's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.